live mic and a live video.
So when that light is red, that means it's not live and the rest is off the live.
It just, the red light specifically means, you're muted.
Still learning things. All right, it looks like it's 4 o'clock right on the dot. Maybe we do a little roll call, if that's all right. You want to start, Brett?
Yep, Britt Hornsby.
Jennifer Davila.
Josh Lee?
Spencer Wade. Gary Oz.
So we got everybody here and
Erin Nelson serving as town manager.
Looks good. The first thing on the agenda is looking at approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Question for a small edit on that. Did anybody else take a look at it and have anything else to suggest?
What's your edit?
My edit, and this will become more clear a little bit later in the agenda when we have Kristen and Dennis talk, but there's a line that says, it's under the first bullet point under 4, and it says, the county, San Juan County follows state code as many counties and municipalities do, which states minimum lot sizes are 1 acre. And I would like to add our 1 acre for communities on wells or something, or communities that are not on a culinary water system.
Do we have, did we mention that anywhere further down in the minutes? Because that's when we started talking about it.
It is not anywhere else in the minutes. My concern is that as stated, it's just factually incorrect.
So we've had this issue in the past where what is actually stated in the meeting must be what's in the minutes. And so what I would recommend is that in this meeting's minutes, we make that correction. So we'll state as we were going through the minutes, because these are just drafts. As we're going through the minutes, this we have since learned is factually incorrect, but what is recorded in the minutes here must be what was talked about in the.
But we did talk about it. I believe we talked about it in our discussion last time, because I think that Dennis did state one of the things that makes me less worried about this is the fact that you're on a culinary water system.
Yeah, he did say that, but he didn't say that that there was a difference. So I think you're probably right. I just like, we need to make sure that whatever minutes this next time around, we clarify that. So you're probably right. Like what was what was stated. So I think it's fine to leave it as it is. And we just need to really make sure that the record is kind of clarified after this meeting.
I'm having the same issue with planning and zoning because they also got that update. And so, you know, I'd love to have like a little disclaimer on the minutes or something, but the purpose of the minutes as reported is what happened in that meeting.
What happened at that meeting, yeah. All right, well then I would say that if that's the case, thank you for that. I don't have anything other than that. That was the main. Anybody, anything else?
There's a couple of edits that Gary made in the document. I'm sharing it on Zoom if you guys want to look at it and follow along. And I can help you approve.
So.
One was just I was trying to find it online. One was just I think recommend instead of recommended or something. I can't see that far.
Some way does not,
It should
recommend, should be recommend,
Yeah.
where it says recommended, yeah.
And then down below where she said Jen had a conflict because she had a lot or something. I thought she said property, because it was like she wanted to divide it or
I think that makes sense too,
something like that.
just property. Has property to sell. That seems clear enough.
Motion to approve January 20th, 2026 Bluff Town Council regular meeting minutes with changes. And I don't think we have to, if it's grammatical, it doesn't pertain to.
Yeah.
That would be good.
I'll second.
Okay, everybody in favor?
I.
Any opposing? All roll of that passes. All right, thanks. All right, we are gonna turn to, actually, we should take public comment first, if there is anybody to do public comment. Anyone here to do public comment? Marsha? If anybody is online and wants to comment, can you, raise your hand or drop in the chat for us? Give it just a beat. All right. Of course, anytime someone can come talk to us, but we'll close the public comment period and go to that first order of business, which is following up on our discussion from last time. Dennis, thanks for coming back down again, and Kristen for being willing to be here. I think, Kristen, we're gonna have you kind of set the stage for the follow-up conversation from last time.
Sure. So I did send you guys written comment too in your emails, but basically just referencing. So we did move it forward with Dennis in the county. Magically, he ended up at a state conference the next day with all the other environmental health directors and brought Bluff's situation to them. And we found out it's already taken care of in state code. Because we're in the unique situation where we do have culinary water supply, and are on septics, that's not the usual. But we are able to go down to 0.275 acres under ideal soil conditions. We want to reiterate that just because we have that table with lot size minimums, that does not guarantee that if you go down that small that you can get a septic on it without doing a proper soils analysis and on-site wastewater engineering and design. So that's what we found out. It's already written in state code. And so we don't need to take any further. So our document stands. The only thing that that changed was that minimum lot size. Everything else stands by state code. So we turned that into a nice little resource for people wanting a checklist of how to do a wastewater system.
Awesome.
So just to clarify, if our Bluff zoning ordinance was, take that out for a moment. Under the state code, you could go down to 0.275, but our ordinance says minimum lot size of a half an acre currently for residential.
So
right?
land use code for town is 0.5, it's half acre. State code for on-site wastewater is 0.275. You know, Jen did bring up at our last meeting, housing. How do we get more affordable housing? That would be one way, is if planning and zoning, and we're revamping the ordinance now and that matrix. And as part of our discussion, do we want to go smaller? We could go smaller setbacks, smaller lots. But that makes the fabric of town a lot tighter than we have it now. But if we are able to get lots smaller, and more buildable by minimizing setbacks to what building code requires, we could make tighter neighborhoods with more affordable lots.
I just want to distinguish those two things. There's a land use code of half an acre, and then there's what is potentially feasible in perfect conditions, like you
And
said.
if I'll jump in there, so
Yeah.
typically with the county, when somebody's going to subdivide or split any lot of subdivision. The soil analysis has to be done prior to that subdivision being signed off, so if somebody's got an acre and wants to split it into, 0.33. That's a proposal, they do their soil analysis. If it hits the right parameters for soil, they've got to go ahead and do that.
Under the county.
So there's protection, there's checkpoints. If our land use wanted to go smaller, there are checkpoints to assure that lots are buildable with a dwelling unit and a septic system. And that is the checkpoint.
And those setbacks are still under state code, so all the setbacks that are required for septic would still be applicable regardless of the size of the lot.
So then just again, I'm just kind of reiterating this to clarify the record. Our minutes next time will be clear and everything. But so kind of the ordinance that had been before us last time is not needed to reduce lot sizes. But what you all have done is take in a lot of what was in that ordinance and put it into a resource that we can share with people who are considering building. So that they know that beyond just the pure lot size, what are those other things that they're gonna maybe need to do? Like hiring a certified septic designer, having the engineering, all that stuff. So we don't need an ordinance. There will not be at the county level, but we will now have this resource for people that hopefully clarifies. Did I get that right?
Basically, it's a state code in a more friendly format.
I want to thank both of you for being willing to work with us on this matter. You know, it's so nice that we have people who have the correct resources to go to and answer questions rather than us just trying to assume and play guessing games on how to develop good workable code. So thank you for taking up the issue and working with us on it.
Yeah, I really agree. And we had some feedback from public after the last meeting. People were a little confused and it's like, we're really moving towards trying to do things right in the town and not having buried refrigerators as septic tanks and all the things that used to happen in the past. And we want to make sure that we can, build and meet housing and those sort of things. So I think it's clarified. Does anybody else have further questions on this?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, well, I think that we can consider that we don't have to worry about an ordinance going forward. And we will have, and we'll talk about this later in the agenda, further discussions with planning and zoning about, where we maybe want to go or don't go with things in the future. Hopefully it's clarified going forward for people what the current situation is. Thank you both for.
Thank you. Now, maybe for the record, any help needed from the health department, we're here for you. Okay, always.
Really appreciate that. Our next agenda item is to talk about playground, fun stuff. We're talking about sidewalks and playgrounds. Melina, where are we at? We had heard maybe that we didn't get any bids, but now we did get a bid,
So
so.
it turns out I don't know how to look at a calendar. I wrote on the closing date was, last Tuesday, but I thought it was last Monday, and so Monday night I said, oh no, we don't have any. Good thing we got it on a Tuesday. So we received one bid. I'm gonna share my screen real quick so you guys can see where we're at. We got one bid from Pueblo Tierra Construction. This is for so I have the amount here for $12,656. This is for a sidewalk perimeter. I'll pull up our drawing once you guys get a good look there. Whew. Sorry, close your eyes, don't watch. Don't make you sick. Okay. So this is going to be a sidewalk around the future playground, following my mouse along, that's going to connect to the pavilion, connect to the Fire Mesa kitchen. Then I'm going to go down to the next page so you can see a side view with the retaining wall on the east side of the playground and on the north side of the playground. Symbol tree is about here where my mouse is wiggling. And what we realized at our pre-bid meeting was that we have a lot of slope. I mean, we realized it by looking at it, but as not contractors, we didn't necessarily know what to do. So we were really relieved to have a couple of experts show up and help us to determine what the best way to do this. So this was actually sent out after, as an amendment, sent it out to all the appropriate people. And the bid that came in is going to do all of these items, including grading the space. So while we did have an in-kind contribution for grading, I think this may have been a little bit more intense than what that person had actually signed up for in-kind. So my current thought is, once we get this playground perimeter done, get the playground installed, and then move on to our sport court, which is going to be here on the west side of our playground to be installed at a later date to ensure that we do still have a playground, we'll take that one out. And then that's where we can get our in-kind grading done, if that makes sense. But I know your guys' big question is budget. Where are we on budget? So let me flip to another screen.
because what we have paid and what we have agreed to pay for the playground itself is $167,535. Our grant, flip into another screen, is for $165,000, and we have committed to a $13,000 cash match. Where we come in with our, which amounts to 178, where we have come in with this bid and with the playground is $180,191, which is a $2,191 difference. That ultimately, if you guys approve, we will have to pay. But I think that's really close to estimates, and I am personally very proud of myself. And I hope you are too. So, back to this estimate.
So have we already paid? How much have we already paid?
To Garrett?
About $110,000.
Thank you.
And then like the remaining would be like installation and stuff after this is done.
Correct.
Here's some good images, refresher of what this new space is gonna look like. There's gonna be trees.
Insta trees.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Quinn.
Yeah, grass.
Green hills in the background too. When do they put those in?
The later phase.
Well, later.
It's phase 7.
You can just keep the bluffs.
I don't know, bulldoze and small.
Say that again?
The sport board, is that in the 180?
Oh, yes, the sport court is included as well as the fence around the sport court. Yeah,
That's all in the grant plus our cap.
correct.
So then, I guess my follow-up question on the budget, just to make sure we're on, that $2,000, do we have enough wiggle room in the budget category that is to cover the 2,000, or is that something we're gonna have to put in the?
No, all of that, there's enough wiggle room in Parks and Recreation, that we wouldn't exceed the approved annual budget.
Good deal. So I guess from a procedure standpoint, it's kind of been the policy to have the council sign off on vendor selections. So just for safety for now, that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
So anybody have any concerns about signing off on this sidewalk and grading vendor? I think if not, then I'll just ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So
Abstaining.
we have one abstention. So I'll rule that passes. And we can go ahead and get ourselves a sidewalk.
Yay, thanks, guys.
Good deal. You're gonna think it's Groundhog Day, but that was actually yesterday, but we're coming back with another resolution on Zions from our first meeting of the year. Planning, Aaron, or do you want me to?
Yeah, so the resolution that was passed on January 6th, 2026, while it was extensive and talked about removing signatories from the safe deposit box where we keep record copies of some important legal documents like deeds and stuff like that. Well, it talked about removing individuals, it didn't talk about adding other individuals. So resolution 98 is a resolution that would add Josh Ewing, Aaron Nelson, and Jennifer Davila as those who can access that signature or that safe deposit box. We felt as though we three are probably the ones who would need to get up there and get it unless you all have any opposition to that. So it restates current membership officers and removing all previous council members and then adding ourselves.
Yeah, we still had Jim and Brant and signature, or it's like access asset in that box, so we're just really just cleaning it up. So I'm just kind of following the letter of it, which is good for a bank to do.
Yeah.
So any questions on that?
Do we have to roll call resolution?
Yes,
We
please.
do, yeah, we do have to roll call resolution. So I'll call for a vote on that and a roll call vote.
Britt Hornsby, yes.
Jennifer Davila, yes.
Josh, yes.
Spencer Wade, yes.
Gary
Gary Hodge, yes.
Thanks, Karen. Okay. So that is passed unanimously, and I'll go ahead and sign that, before we get out of here. Hopefully, we never really have to do too much with that safety deposit cost, but we'll have it taken care of. Okay, so this next one, is a little bit complicated, but it's not a vote or anything today, but I want to kind of preview it for y'all so that as it moves through the process, you know what's going on, and where we're at with it. So I'm just going to kind of give a little mini presentation here, and then those who want more information, we're going to actually talk about this at the planning and zoning meeting on Thursday. Thanks, Malia, for helping us get that on the agenda. So HB 48, what is that? Basically, it was the state's attempt last year. So this passed the legislative session last year. It's the state's attempt to kind of get on top of some of the big disastrous wildfire costs that we've seen in other states, particularly out in California. And the bill basically did two things. And a lot of people have been kind of freaking out about one part of the bill and not paying attention to the other part of the bill. But one thing it did is it created a new fee structure that if your property ends up in the state's high-risk wildfire area, then you're going to have to start paying fees to the state to go into a wildfire disaster fund. And you can pay less fees if you have someone come out on your property and give you an assessment and you do some things to reduce the fees. And so people had been that was the controversial part of the bill. And people have been waiting for those maps to come out, and they just came out at the very end of last year. Well, Chief Lott and I looked at those maps and we breathed a big sigh of relief because there are no properties in Bluff. In fact, there's no land at all in the Bluff town boundaries that are in that kind of super high wildfire risk category. So essentially, we dodged kind of a bullet of having to implement this new fee structure. Not everybody in San Juan County was so lucky. So actually, at the Council of Governments meeting last week, the county is pretty concerned about how to do this. The county collects these fees. There are hundreds of homes in Blanding, Monticello that will be assessed this fee. And so they're going to try to figure out how to do it. And it's a very difficult issue. We don't have to deal with that for now. But there is another part of the bill. And that other part of the bill, which some towns have actually worked on, but many kind of didn't, requires that if you are part of the cooperative wildfire system, which Bluff is, and we want to be because it provides a really good backstop to our town. If you're part of that system, then you're required to pass building codes that require homeowners to build essentially firewise. And I'm paraphrasing, but you have to adopt wilderness, wildland urban interface building codes. So the state law is forcing us as Bluff to adopt those types of building codes. There is a 2006 version of those codes. That is the current standard in the state of Utah. And then very soon in this legislative session, they very likely will adopt the 2024 building codes. That part of the bill said that we were supposed to have adopted those by January 1st of this year. So technically we are out of alignment with state code. We were supposed to have adopted those building codes earlier. It does not appear there are any wildfire police coming after us at the moment, but in order for us to get in alignment with the law, we need to adopt those building codes. The big concern here really would be, is it because participation in the cooperative wildfire system is tied to those building codes? If we don't get those adopted, we could jeopardize our part of that system, and we don't want to do that. So I'm suggesting we kind of rectify the situation in an expedient but not hair on fire type way. The one piece that I didn't look at, so they're kind of forcing our hand. We have to adopt some of these building codes. The one piece that is on our plates is to adopt a wildland urban interface map for our town. Essentially saying what parts of our town are in the wildland urban interface. You could look at those two ways. One, we don't have anything urban in Bluff, so there's no wildland urban interface because there's nothing urban. That I'm being a little facetious there because we're very rural, right? But it's actually just really hard to really argue that anything in our town isn't in kind of a wildland interface from a wildfire perspective. We have, you know, a small fire department, long response times for mutual aid. It probably makes sense that our entire town builds fire lines moving forward. But we do officially have to adopt a map. And adopting that map is where it kind of gets into the P and Z territory of being a land use, right? We would be applying these new fire codes in where this map comes in. Likely the map would be all of the town of Bluff, but that's the discussion. That's only the purview we have. And so I wanted to give you all that update because we're going to kind of try to move relatively expeditiously to get this corrected. The next step is for the Planning and Zoning Commission to learn about this. I'm planning to go on Thursday, provide more detail and background, show some maps, those sort of things. Then we as town council have a joint work session with planning and zoning coming up on, what's that date?
February 19th.
On the 19th, where we talk about this. If things went well, perhaps planning and zoning could make their recommendation at their following planning and zoning meeting. And then we could have a public hearing, right? And you can, all these steps that need to happen, but maybe by, you know, sometime in March, perhaps we could have passed the law that we're required to have, or the ordinance that we're required to have in place to meet the law. So I know that was kind of complex. Any immediate questions about it? We'll obviously be talking about it more, but I wanted to make sure this was on the public record and we were talking about it, you know, before it got too far down the road.
One of the questions I had was regarding, is this requiring a separate ordinance or adjustments to our building code and or zoning ordinances? Or is it?
The way you helped me research this a little bit and I've read it. I've seen 3 or 4 other towns do this and they essentially just pass an ordinance that says we're adopting these building codes and, you know, applicable in this area. And so I don't know if they're then also going and redoing, it does not changing the zoning, right? It doesn't change your zoning from residential or anything. It's not changing any zoning. It just says if you build or you have a major remodel, you're going to have to meet these building codes. And essentially applies everywhere. So what I've seen other towns do is just pass an ordinance like that. So I don't think it means we would go redo, but it would mean that when Kristen is seeing a building permit come through, she would have to remind them, hey, you've got to meet these national wildland urban interface building codes now.
So this would kind of be similar to what our dark sky ordinance is, that they have to have dark sky approved lighting in order to sign off on the building
Yeah,
inspection.
I wonder too, if we're able to roll it up under building code. I know Kristen and the department had talked about potentially making some modifications. So, you know, if we have the ability to just do an amendment to that, as opposed to doing something separate, that might be an easier way to do it. Unless those adjustments are not ready, in which case clearly we want to expedite this and just get it finished, so.
Yeah, it's not, in my understanding is we can't mess with the codes. Like if we don't like a piece of the part of the code, it's not like we can say, you know, we have to adopt what Utah's version is. So I would think in the building codes, they would simply say, you know, you've got to meet the, you know, right now 2006 and then soon probably 2024 while they're interface and that. Yeah.
Where are those maps located? We can look at the.
I can show you, I had to create an account. Which you could, I think as a public official, you could, but you had to just make a small application to the state. I think that maybe there's a little sensitivity about accessing it. But there is a public version, so I'd be happy afterwards to show
Okay.
you. And my plan is at P and Z on Thursdays to pull up the map and kind of show, so you can visually show.
Yeah.
Basically, the short version of the story is if you look at the state's risk indicators, almost all of the town, with a very small exception, is in a high risk area for wildfire. Wildfire structure exposure.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of weird exceptions, one of which is the one place we had a wildfire in the town in the last 5 years. So, you know, the data is,
Yeah.
you know, not perfect by any means. But yeah, I can show you where to access if you want to play
Okay.
around.
Yeah. Sweet.
Okay, any other questions on that? If not, we'll kind of move forward with that process and then I'll be coming back to the council pretty soon. Okay, next agenda item is a little bit follow-up to our last meeting and kind of some comments that Britt, you had made at the end of that, and wanting to kind of revisit some of our policies and procedures for setting our agenda and running meetings. And I have a couple of ideas to kind of run by y'all. Again, nothing that we're planning to vote on tonight because it's not in writing, and you know that all that stuff needs to be in writing. But I wanted to kind of talk to you about what I'm thinking and see any other ideas, especially folks that maybe been on the council longer, if you have ideas. But basically, as just a way of introduction, the town council, way back when the town became a town, passed a resolution with some very kind of basic meeting procedures. And then at some point last year, I think it was April of last year, the council voted on a policy, but did not vote on a ordinance. But that policy had a number of things in there, like we're gonna follow open meetings law, you know, we're not gonna break any laws, those sort of things. But the two main things that I focus in on is, it has a clause that essentially says, in running the meeting, the mayor can call for a vote on any issue. And then subsequent, it has something that says the procedure for dealing with motions and seconds. But it doesn't really tie the two together, you know, the two rules together. And so one thing that I was thinking to clarify is to say, the mayor can call for a vote on things. But in the instance that the mayor is not prepared to call for a vote, any council member can make a motion, and if there's a second, then there will be a vote. So it's essentially a way to say like, hey, maybe the mayor's not comfortable with it, but the rest of the council wants to move forward. There's a procedure. I think that was the intention, but it's really not kind of clear in how it's written.
That's the way I'm reading it, between the two is, the mayor could call it at any point without like a motion, but somebody else could call a motion with a second and go to vote, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought, you know, that would be one thing for us to clarify, and we can draft up some procedures to that effect. The other thing that the policy stated, which in talking a little bit to Luann Hook, I think it was Luann's idea, but the policy stated is that any council member could submit an item to be on the agenda as long as it was 36 hours before the meeting. And it was just one council member could submit an item to be on the agenda. I was a little surprised to read that just because like the way the state code says is that the mayor sets the agenda for the meeting, but then any two council members can put something on the agenda. can have it be on the agenda, and the mayor, again, kind of like the second, and could put it on. So, I think it would be an extraordinarily rare situation where this would kind of come into place, because like generally, if you guys, one of you submit something to me to put on the agenda, I'm gonna say, okay, we'll put it on the agenda. I do think that there will be some times when I feel that it's like a fairly sensitive topic that I'd rather take another week or two before we put it on the agenda, put it off a little bit, do a little bit more research. I think that the septic thing that we just went through was one of those situations where I was kind of like, I'd rather take a little more time. Gary thought it was important for us to move forward, and under the rules that we had, in that, I was like, hey, that's Gary's prerogative to put it forward. My suggestion is we would go back to the way that the state code has it, and essentially say, hey, in the rare situation where the mayor thinks that something shouldn't be on the agenda, and a council member feels strongly about it, they essentially just need to go lobby and find another council member that also feels strongly enough to say, hey, this goes on the agenda. And I think that would be, going back to that would be maybe a better way to just make sure like this really is something that we feel some urgency around. And, again, it would be the prerogative of those two council members to do that. So that's kind of what I would propose we go back to. Technically, under the state law, it says that it has to be by ordinance that power is taken away from the mayor, and it was just a policy. So I'd also like to just clean that up. And just make sure we're all on the same page. So that's probably something we ought to, discuss.
Could we adjust that to say if it's to call for a vote, that would happen? But I feel frustrated often, and it was a classic example of it in our last meeting, is that I feel like we get very few opportunities to actually listen to the experts and explore different things. Like if we had just had the information session that we had last week, where we were able to be together, ask questions, get answers, explore for new answers, that would have satisfied a lot of things. So it didn't necessarily need a vote on the issue right there. But I get frustrated because I don't know when, other than in our public meeting format that we're in right now, or our work session, we actually have the time to be together and have a discussion with people to inform ourselves about better governing of the town. So I wonder if maybe we could bring discussion agenda items singularly onto the agenda, and just maybe make the requirement for a vote item or something like that as a two-person. I don't know if that's kind of a way to satisfy both of those.
I mean, that's in a way, what we just talked about with the vote and motion and a second is
Right.
kind of a way of handling that.
Right.
So I
Except
guess,
that we don't say on our agenda that we're planning on vote on that. We're not, at least the way I read it, we're not supposed to call for a vote on it.
that's right. So yeah, what you're saying is the policy would say, if the mayor's not ready for a vote, essentially, if the mayor's not ready for a vote, but we want the two council members think it's something we should vote on, they could put that on the agenda to call for a vote.
That's why I'm reading it.
Yeah,
and the discussion topic is
yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah, well, just like number 4 was today, discussion for planning and ordinance, I mean, it was a discussion item. It's a way to put it all on our radar, to ask questions that we need to ask. And just to inform ourselves, maybe before we do vote. I mean, often we will push a vote off, or past, we've often pushed a vote off because we didn't feel like we had enough information to vote on it yet. But I don't know. I just wonder if that's a way to.
I mean, I guess I'm fine with either one, to be honest.
And I guess, I think most of the time that would be totally fine. I just think there will be times, I think, where me as the mayor, I'm kind of looking at the big picture of what we're trying to get done and how much time we have, and, priorities sort of thing. And there may be a slight disagreement with a council member on how fast we should move on something. And, I think I'd like it to be that the mayor can kind of make those calls, but there is a mechanism to be overridden, like where like if two council members. Saying, hey, no, this is urgent, we need to move on it, okay, we got it,
Yeah, it just shouldn't be in a situation where the gamemanship is where the mayor can throttle the entirety of voting, period. Like that would be bad.
Right,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm comfortable with doing it the way he's proposing, but I'm also fine with, I mean, because I guess it would be like we have to revisit it if it's like, we keep sending him agenda topics and he's not doing it, then it would be a revisit conversation, I guess, but.
Yeah, I just, I mean, sometimes I just don't feel like I'm necessarily ready. I feel like I need some more information and it's hard to glean that information. And hear other people's opinion about it, which I think is such an important thing of what we're doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Without having the discussion, and it's hard to have a discussion if you have quorum and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, my ultimate like preference is like if we could have a full work session in between, the thing
I
coming
agree.
up and
I
the
agree.
vote, like be awesome if there's always mentioned or talked about work session first, but that sometimes isn't possible, especially state and like timing laws and stuff. So, I mean, like I said, I think we can address some of those issues, like separate than this issue, right?
Yeah, with planning it
We're
out.
planning it out.
What about this policy, Gary and Spencer, what do you guys think?
It was my bad to call for a vote. I didn't think about that part. I think though that, an item, if it becomes to us as council members that are important for the town, and especially where this one had already been heard in planning and zoning, that we, I felt it important to get that on the agenda to discuss, and my wording probably could have been better and saying, a discussion of this, and then look to, giving them the green light, red light, whatever, down the road or that. But as far as the changing it to lobby another one to get it on, so I think it's very rare, maybe you guys can correct me, that a council person wants something on the agenda. Say as bad as I did to request it and say, well, no, the policy says one council person can do it.
Well, it would only be if I said no, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Which would be a very rare, hopefully, situation.
Yeah, I just felt that on this one, that they had put in everything that they were gonna come tell us, and we could be informed in there. And then ask the questions, and I shouldn't have put that second part about that. Oh, I wanna vote.
I
Because,
do
yeah,
like having the safeguard of if there is a rare case that we feel like we need to or if there's the case where something truly comes up last minute on the docket or something and it catches some of our radars and for whatever reason, we're not able to get a hold of you, I think it's important that, hey, in 48 hours, they're gonna pass this blah, 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 and we've totally missed the ball. We need to put it on our docket. And so I think it's nice to have that fallback of two council members to put it on. So I think it's workable.
Any thoughts, Vincent?
I would say I don't have enough experience with any of these things like actually happening or being in any of these situations to know what really makes sense. So I'll just kind of defer to the experience.
Well, it seems like one of the
People with
things
experience.
that would happen is like, if with the, because it would happen over the last 2 years, like something gets put on the agenda by one person. And then I feel bad for the person because sometimes it fails, but not because people don't support it, but because they haven't had enough time to support it. Yeah, you know what I mean? And they, don't want to just vote on something they haven't read
Right.
well. You know what I mean? And so I feel bad because like the thing that the calling the second person can do is verify that it is something that's worth going on. And if you get a good temperature, like if you call Jen and ask Jen's opinion, you'll get a good temperature of like how it's going to go anyways. Like if I brought it to vote, like, oh, Jen's already going like, like, then it's like, okay, well, there's one, like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I like the backup, having the second person get it on the agenda.
Well, how about I'll draft it up so you actually see it, right? This, we're just talking about it now. I'll draft it up so you actually see it. For discussion in the work session next week, so it still wouldn't be a vote, so it's still just like a draft on paper, you look at it. Hopefully we don't spend too much time on it in the work session, because we want to do our priorities for a year. And then you guys can give me feedback on it, and then maybe we can go that toward the end of the month.
But I do like the general trimming of the agenda, like as it's been, if we could keep it down to manageable, because sometimes it would be like 24 points and, you know, an evening, which is brutal.
Well, and I think likely, unless it's an issue, you know, that was a big issue that Gary brought up. I'm not, no shade on that. I mean, it's like an important issue, and there's people probably waiting by property on it and stuff like that. You know, I think most of the time, I'd just be like, hey, I appreciate you want to bring that forward. Do you mind if we bump that to the next one? Most of the time, you'd be like, fine, right? So I think it's pretty rare, but it's good for us to deal with the rare ones, because those are the ones where there's a little more emotion involved. Okay. I'll draft something up, and y'all can let me know what you think.
Send you the editable version of where it's stated.
Good deal. Jen, would you mind giving us just a little background on this next item, the Federal Customs and Border Protection proposal that's currently out for public comments that the business community has expressed some concern about?
I will, as much as is in my knowledge of what it is. This actually got proposed, the current president and his administration have proposed to implement some regulations to open up 5 years of social media accounts for people who have already been, so ESTA, I can't remember what ESTA stands for, but an ESTA visa is basically, well, it's not a visa. We have about 40 to 45 countries that we work with in the United States that are not required to attain a visa to come visit the US. So it makes it for an easier way for people from largely Europe. I'm not exactly sure what all the 45 countries are. Honestly, I haven't looked at the list, but
Some Asian companies.
some Asian
like
companies,
Japan.
Japan, I think actually Korea, I think within the last 15 years, South Korea has gotten an ESTA visa waiver, but it just allows them to travel without the rigmarole of having to apply for a visa to come into the United States. What the current administration is proposing is that with these countries that already have the ESTA visa waiver policy, that these people are subject now of providing 5 years of social media contact, background checks, etc., before they're allowed to come into our country.
10 years of emails.
Yeah, 10 years of emails, 5 years of social media. I don't know about any of you, but if I had to provide all of that stuff to go to visit a country, I wouldn't be going. You know, it's like I can't even access social media stuff from 3 years ago, let alone 5 years ago. So one of our concerns is that this is just another blow against international tourists coming to visit the United States. We've had several already that have come into effect in the last year. And it's going to be a big one. We are already hearing a little bit about it from mostly tour operator companies who are coming in concerned that, you know, I'm bringing this tour of 20 people into your community, and all 5 of these people, or all 20 of these people, have to provide all of this extra information. I think it's overkill, because if you're a country that's been waived to travel without a visa, then theoretically we don't have a lot of terrorist problems and stuff like that coming in with you, where you would want this background information on. So I asked Josh to draft up a letter to the legislature to speak to the administration about, this is a bad idea. We're already getting affected. Our tourism numbers are already down. You know, well, our tourism numbers really haven't ever recovered from COVID, but they're already down last year from administrative policies and things like that have taken in. And it just doesn't, you know, it just doesn't extend a welcoming hand to these people that we want to come visit. And in Bluff in particular, I know my business, and I'm pretty confident of stating this for the other businesses as well. About 75% of my business is reliant on foreign visitors into the area. So that's a big chunk. And about 75 to 80% of our budget comes from those taxes that are generated by those visitors coming to town. So it really could decimate our budget
And,
as well as our businesses.
and the country list is like a who's who of people that come visit us, like France, Germany.
Right. Right, exactly.
Like, I mean, it's every.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Australia.
So, I've been sitting down with business owners, asking how can the town better support the business community? And, they came to us with this concern. I think it obviously also is a concern for the town with all of our revenues. I asked Aaron to pull, the transient room tax and resort tax numbers and so forth. I was just mostly looking at transient room taxes. It's hotel stays. And if you look at January, if I have this right, Aaron, January through October of 25 versus the same period in 2024, we're down about 9% in transient room tax. But then,
So 8% down TRT, yeah, so it's January through October, because we're always 2 months in arrears. Resort taxes are down almost 5% versus that same period last year. And then overall sales tax is down 1.5%. But again, that's not taking into account November or December, when, so additional administrative changes have been made.
which I think's going on there is we actually maybe have a little bit of bump in domestic.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's
definitely.
covering up how
Yes.
much we're down.
Yes,
How much we're down on the international, because then. We also asked the county, and Aaron was helpful to track this down with the county, they have a way of looking at credit card spending by international folks. And we got that report. And the Canadian credit card spending in San Juan County is down 41% last year. And Germans were also another big one, is down like 16%. So, you could just imagine like that, this is all happening right now. If something like this social media comes into play and we're down another 10-20% next year, it's a real hit to the town revenues and particularly all the businesses that rely on this.
And I do also want to highlight, like, prior years, we had been seeing increases year over year in definitely resort and sales tax, and then TRT, of course, as Jen mentioned, recovery from COVID, but it's not like we were trending down prior to 2025. So this is what is going on. And so I did want to
Reversal.
make that clear on the trend.
yeah, we don't have numbers for the town. We weren't collecting our TRT in 2019, which was our last good year before COVID hit. So we don't have the town generated data. County has that information if anybody wants to look at, county TRT collections and things like that, but it's
So-
just
If you got a chance to look at the letter, I hope I did a decent job of graphing it in a way that is not political. Like, I'm not trying to make this a
Yeah, I liked
political
it.
thing. It's really just, please consider the impact of these decisions on rural communities like Bluff. There's just kind of no way that this won't have an economic impact on us, and you should consider that. The letter is drafted as a formal comment to the Customs and Border Patrol, who put out a public comment period. That public comment period runs through April 9th. February 9th, sorry, February 9th. So there is some time sensitivities. That's why I worked on it this weekend and drafted it out. We're also hopeful to use this to share with other folks in the tourism industry, with San Juan County, with our congressional delegation, so that it's on other people's radar. I don't have any, thoughts that us, hitting with the button and sending a comment to CPB that they're gonna change their decision on it. But maybe if other people start talking about it, the state has lobbyists, they can get involved. And we say this in a non-political way, it's just like, hey, this is an economic issue for us. Maybe that has an impact. So that was kind of the thinking.
And economic impacts on us or economic impacts on the county and the broader community too. So
it's a huge issue. It should be a huge issue for the whole state because our state is very tourism. It's a large chunk of our state's economy as well.
Well, the domestic travel is only gonna make up for so much, if we lose X number or X percentage more of
So,
European or just foreign travel. I mean, it's,
and the fallout's, I mean, brutal, like all the giant motorcycle groups of Germans, you know, that renting Harleys and coming through, I mean, stopping and buying stuff, doing dinner.
Well, and you can look at other impacts, which Diana Davidson has done a wonderful job of looking at, just the pocket ready spend. Europeans come, this is a big vacation for them. They've saved, they're ready to spend the money, whereas, you know, a lot of the domestic traveling that we get, it's like, oh, I can't afford to go to Hawaii this week, so I'm gonna go to San Juan County, and yeah, but they're more, you know, they're more apt to shop out of county, you know, I mean, they're more likely to bring supplies with them, things like that, rather than spending their dollars. So our European dollar seems to, I don't know how to, Diana's so much better at wording this than I am. The European spend is much higher typically than the domestic spend is for our travelers.
They help with some of the harder seasons too, right? Like they come, like, do I have that wrong?
No, you do. No, well, August is a perfect example. The August typically, if you look at our TRT draws for August, they're typically one of the highest that we have. That would totally disappear without our European traffic. That's when Italians and French are traveling on their holidays, and if they didn't come, we wouldn't have any business. Because it's 110 degrees and who wants to go to the desert?
working at Wild Rivers, like there'd be an entire month around August or July that would all be people from the Netherlands or France or. I mean,
Well,
there's just-
Aaron sees that I see, you know, I remember times when I was waiting tables that there were two people in the restaurant who spoke English, and it was the cook and myself. You know, it was,
French, yeah,
Yeah,
table,
yeah.
French.
it's a.
And then you got the next week,
part of
Italian.
our-
Yeah, I mean, it's significant.
And this area is the image of the West for the whole
Mhm,
world.
mhm.
So, I don't see this as a policy decision. We will make policy decision when we're working on budgets, where we probably do need to plan on being down revenues next year. But I mostly didn't want to take an action like this, particularly being a new mayor, without kind of running it by you guys, checking your temperature. We're moving pretty quickly on it. If you all feel okay with, you know, the direction here going there, my idea is I'm, you know, probably gonna finalize this tonight, get it submitted so that Jen can start sharing it with tourism folks and, you know.
You are gonna share it with reps and stuff as well.
Yeah, I figured I'd at least get it to Senator Curtis's office and the Kennedy's office.
County would be. Cool, thank you.
Gary?
The only question I had was this, I liked it too. Cause I think it'll help all of us, not that I have my wagon business anymore. The European did tip better. And, the estimate on the 15.7 billion and the job loss. Is that something known? That we can put a reference there?
Yeah, I should put that in there. So there was a study, basically, I'm not gonna try to invent the name, but there's a national tourism industry group that went out and they did polling in Europe. And they basically said, if you had to provide this, would you go to the United States? And that the number of people that said no, then they estimated off of that. So yeah, we should put a citation to that research.
That's, cause that, wait a minute, that can, but yeah, I think that would be great.
Basically, 23% of the people said, I wouldn't go. If you ask me for that, I'm not gonna go.
I mean, just the stories of going through phones was enough to get a huge shudder through Europe on coming, so.
I can even go back 10 years.
Well, that's how I feel too, Gary, is, you know, I mean, you have to look at these from, well, and then there's the whole enforcement and the, oh, goodness, it's just.
Yeah.
The snowball gets bigger and bigger the more I think about it, but.
Seems like it'd be a
Oh,
massive drain.
I've got the article with that, and so we could. grab that in. So that's a good, yeah, that was a good catch here. I should have had that citation in there to start with. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks, Jen, for bringing that to our attention, and hopefully this is, you know, just the start of us showing support for the as a new-ish council, you know, for the business community when they raise concerns like this, that we're willing to take some action.
Yeah, anything else like that, it's sneaky coming up. So,
If anyone else wants to contact their representatives about it too, it's open for everyone to submit public comment on, so.
All right, last thing quickly is just, I think we kind of pulled around, make sure everyone was available, but we're gonna try to do a joint work session. On February 19 with planning and zoning, so, for those that actually come in person, that will be here. And the idea is just kind of talk through some of the priorities between the two groups for the year. Again, nothing will get voted on, but, an opportunity to talk about what we might want to work on. We'll talk, a little bit more about these fire code issues. Along with that, I wanted to just suggest what we're gonna do in our work session next week. Ahead of that, that is just to talk about our council priorities for the year. And this is something we haven't done yet. I think especially those of us new when we were running and deciding to run, there's probably some reasons we decided to run, some things we'd like to work on. And then I'm sure as the previous council members, there's some things that you think are really important. So what I'd ask for you to come, and you don't need to have anything written up or anything, but if you could have some notes or whatever, if you could say, what are the top, 2, 3, 4 things you'd like to see the council work on? Come to our meeting next week with that discussion. I've got some notes that I've written, as I've been talking to to citizens and stuff like that, but we'll try to have a generative discussion next week and see if we can settle on, something like 3 to 5 things that are like our major priorities for the year. I've always been a big believer, if you got 10 priorities, you don't have any priorities, because like 10 is too many priorities, right? But if we could have a handful of priorities, it's not that there won't be other things that we work on, but. So if you can just be thinking about that over the next week, again, nothing formal needs to happen, but if you have like, I'd really like to work on X. Maybe there'll be other people that are like, yeah, that's a real priority for us too. And not everything has to be a top priority of the council for us to work on it. There could be something that Spencer's really stoked about. Spencer works on it. Maybe it's not a council priority for all of us, but we can still work on it. So it's kind of trying to help, and it's gonna help the staff, I think, too, be like, the council has these more priorities. So that's kind of part for next week's session, and then we will have the joint with planning and zoning part.
In the past, we've kind of tried to align those a little bit with the strategic plan priorities.
I think the hard thing is, Aaron and I were talking about this, there's a lot of priorities in
Yeah,
the strategic plan, right? So like honing in on
Yeah.
of those things that are in the strategic plan, what's rising to the top for us.
Some of the things that we found though is when we pick a priority, we can often plug it into several different priorities in the strategic plan. So it says, hey, we worked on this one, this one, and this one, and this one.
That's good.
So, it's just nice to umbrella it.
Do you guys have a physical copy of the strategic plan? Okay.
It's cool.
Do we have any more?
Let me take a look.
I'd love one if if we did have it, I just had to look through it.
It's one of the few things I like having a physical copy for, because you're flipping through it often during a conversation, trying to find where it lines up.
Yeah, I will, I have an idea as to where some might be.
Sweet.
They're not here right now, but I'll place some phone calls.
Any kind of other updates? I mean, we're not gonna vote on anything, but.
Yes, I've just scheduled today the fire mitigation weekend, March 27th and 28th. So start trimming and I'll send out an official email and things soon.
Good deal.
It'll be at the CCC, same thing, so I'll do a big call, but get the dates on your calendars.
27th and 28th.
Yes, of March.
It was really beneficial, I think, and helped a lot. Did we get counted as
Yeah, we got
fire
counted
points?
against them.
Yeah.
As part of our cooperative wildfire
Right,
system,
right.
that counts toward our the fees that we have to pay every year, so it is really helpful.
I got lots of really positive comments from the public about that too, that it was nice to, it's hard to dispose of that stuff, so.
I guess one other thing I'll just mention, it's related that is we have had the news that Chief Bluff is gonna be stepping down. He's decided that he's gonna be living up in Blandon to be closer to work. He's done an incredible job, and we'll have more to celebrate him later on. But he's gonna take a slow transition off and help us out with things like planning for this event. But we are having a meeting tonight of the leadership of the fire department, kind of talk about succession and so forth. So I'll keep you all in the loop on that, but I just thought for those that hadn't heard, mention that, and then we'll keep you on the loop on what's going forward with that.
Okay.
And we'll keep that in works. All right, with that, hearing nothing more, I guess I'll say we are adjourned for the day. Thanks, everybody. It's 5:05.
Thank you.